saying moments ago that he would take dirt on his 2020 political opponent if Russia, China, or any foreign country offered that dirt, that he'd take the dirt and not call the FBI. The president just telling ABC News that he sees absolutely nothing wrong with this. George Stephanopoulos asked the president whether his son, Don Jr., should have accepted a meeting with Russians to get information on Hillary Clinton, dirt on her. Well, here's what the president said to George just moments ago.
Should he have gone to the FBI when he got that email?
Okay, let's put yourself in a position. You're a congressman. Somebody comes up and says, hey, I have information on your opponent. Do you call the FBI? I don't think.
Coming from Russia, you do?
I've seen a lot of things over my life. I don't think in my whole life I've ever called the FBI. In my whole life. You don't call the FBI. You throw somebody out of your office. You do whatever
Al
you do.
Gore got a stolen briefing book. He called the FBI.
Well, that's different. A stolen briefing book. This isn't a stolen. This is somebody that said, we have information on your opponent. Oh, let me call the FBI. Give me a break. Life doesn't work that way.
The FBI director says that's what should happen.
The FBI director is wrong.
Your campaign this time around, if foreigners, if Russia, if China, if someone else offers you information on an opponent, should they accept it or should they call the FBI?
I think maybe you do both. I think you might want to listen. There's nothing wrong with listening. If somebody called from a country, Norway, we have information on your opponent. Oh, I think I'd want to hear it.
You want that kind of interference in our elections?
It's not an interference. They have information. I think I'd take it. If I thought there was something wrong, I'd go maybe to the FBI if I thought there was something wrong. But when somebody comes up with Oppo research, right, they come up with Oppo research. Oh, let's call the FBI. The FBI doesn't have enough agents to take care of it. But you go and talk honestly to congressmen. They all do it. They always have. And that's the way it is. It's called Oppo research.
Okay. It's a stunning exchange. And as George referred to the FBI director, Christopher Wray, let me just remind you that this FBI director, of course, is Trump's FBI director. He appointed him. And Christopher Wray, just to Congress last month, was asked, right, whether you should call the FBI if a foreign government or anyone affiliated with one, right, gives you information on your opponent. Christopher Wray said, quote, my view is that if any public official or member of any campaign is contacted by any nation state or anybody acting on behalf of a nation state about influencing or interfering with our election, then that's something that the FBI would want to know about. Well, you heard President Trump. He says Wray is wrong. Abby Phillips joins me live at the White House. Abby, this is a stunning statement from the President of the United States.
It's stunning, Aaron, particularly because of how it has really demonstrated the slide for President Trump, where he has gone from a place of acknowledging on some level that this was wrong to trying to rationalize it. Now, remember, this Trump Tower meeting that is really part of what we're talking about here is something that the president tried to lie about. He said that that meeting was about Russian adoptions. And that was partly because the president knew that there would be political blowback from acknowledging that that meeting was about getting dirt from Russia about Hillary Clinton. And now here we are 2 years later, and the president is now saying that that was A-OK. And I think that, Aaron, is really just a demonstration of how the president is now trying to change public opinion on the matter of whether it is okay to get dirt from foreign governments. And I think it really undermines, in a lot of ways, the entire Mueller investigation. The president is saying it was not interference. The Mueller report makes it clear that the Russian interference was systematic and sweeping in its nature. That is a quote from the Mueller report. It is not something that the Mueller report described as simply opposition research or trying to get dirt on a political opponent. It was interference by a foreign government, and the president is now saying that there was absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I should also add, Aaron, that just earlier today, President Trump was talking about this very subject, and he suggested that his campaign aides had actually rebuffed the Russians, and that he pointed to that as proof that they had actually done the right thing at the time. It's clear, Aaron, that they didn't do the right thing at the time then, and he's now saying that they would have had no reason to rebuff the Russians because getting dirt from the Russians, there's nothing wrong with that in the president's view. That is stunning because I think also, Aaron, a lot of Republicans disagree with that. That question that was asked to Christopher Wray, that was asked by a Republican lawmaker. So it's clear that that there is not unanimity on this issue, even on the president's side of the political spectrum, which is what makes this all the more really stunning for a president of the United States to say in the Oval Office, no less.
I mean, incredibly stunning. And of course, remember, you know, the emails were explicit, right? It was Russian government. The woman who hosted ended up being at the meeting, of course, is an admitted informant for the Kremlin. Thank you very much, Abby. I want to go now to Philip Allen Lacovera. He served as counsel to the Watergate special prosecutor, Juliette Kayyem, who was assistant secretary as the Department of Homeland Security, and Mark Preston, CNN senior political analyst. Juliette, let me just start with you. It's a pretty stunning thing what we just heard here. I mean, I don't even know where to give the exact quote, but perhaps this one. In my whole life, I've never called the FBI. You don't call the FBI.
Right, that's the businessman, Donald Trump, which you can ask yourself, why did he never call the FBI if he saw something illegal, showing that he's never morphed into the commander-in-chief and the person that the Constitution expects to protect the United States democratic system. So I'm kind of over shock at this stage. Like, in other words, this has been hinted at for a long time by the Trump people. They first denied the meetings, and they said the meetings were about adoptions, and they said, well, the meetings really didn't matter, and then they said, well, they mattered, but they didn't matter that much, and then now the meetings are totally fine, right? And then let's have future meetings. So they've been laying this out. Just quickly to think about it both in terms of offense and defense. Offense is, this is a welcome mat. It is a come hither, not just for the Russians, but for the Chinese, and not just for Donald Trump, but for every Republican running that he wants to make, win in the House or the Senate. On the defense side, this may be related to concerns Donald Trump has about some of these pending cases and what they are going to show about his family's collusion, I'm going to use the word, with the Russians. So that's how I sort of would interpret this not surprising but still shocking series of events today.
Philip, I mean, what's your reaction here? The President of the United States has just said in the Oval Office that he wouldn't necessarily call the FBI if approached by a foreign government. In fact, he said, "Oh, I'd want to hear it. I would, I'd take the information. I'd listen." What's your reaction?
Well, it's another example of the president being politically tone deaf because he's obviously in conflict with his own FBI director. But I think a key point can't be overlooked here, which is that what Chris Wray was saying as the FBI director is what a decent, honorable citizen should do. But the Mueller report concluded that it was not currently a criminal violation for the Trump campaign to engage in all of the collusion that Juliette just mentioned. There was a lot of collusion with the Russians' efforts to engage in our electoral process, but under the current laws, there isn't anything illegal about it. So what Donald Trump is essentially saying is, if we can get away with it, we'll do it regardless of whether or not it's the decent thing for people to do if they care about American democracy.
Well, I mean, Mark, I guess that's what's so stunning about it. But let me just play again, Ray, because obviously this is another example of Trump breaking with his intelligence agencies, right? Christopher Wray is his FBI director. Christopher Wray was asked this question, what would you do? And here's what he said. Let me play him saying it. I quoted a moment ago, but let's hear it from his own mouth.
My view is that if any public official or member of any campaign is contacted by any nation state or anybody acting on behalf of a nation state about influencing or interfering with our election, then that's something that the FBI would want to know about.
George asked him about it, Mark, and he expressly said he's wrong about his own FBI director. Okay. What does Chris Wray do now? This is a big moment.
Well, it's a big moment, but I would put this in a category of a lot of big moments, and I'm not sure we'll see anything from Christopher Wray. We haven't seen anything very much from a lot of the cabinet members or from Republicans who disagree with what Donald Trump has said. Now, we've seen the likes of James Mattis, who was the defense secretary, who had enough, and he left. I mean, he stood on his own principle, and he left his position. But I don't think we're going to see any outcry from Republicans. I don't think we're going to see Christopher Wray come out and say anything. I think that he's just pretty much going to be quiet and try to keep his head down. I think what's important, too, we're looking at this as Donald Trump saying this, but I also think we have to look at the greater picture of this, Aaron. And this is Donald Trump saying this inside the Oval Office, sitting at the Resolute desk, saying that it's okay to get this information. The optics of this are terrible, and really, I wonder what the long-term consequences are going to be for people to think that this is okay when it's clearly not.
Philip, what are the legal issues here? I mean, you point out, obviously, in the Mueller report, right, lots of collusion, but not rising to the level of a criminal conspiracy, right, which would be prosecutable. However, when a president says, I could be offered information by the Russians or the Chinese or anyone else, and I would take that call and I wouldn't necessarily call the FBI, just to be clear, is that against the law or not against the law, or does it depend on what the information is?
Well, when they were trying to sort out some basis for a criminal case in connection with the famous Trump Tower meeting, they were identifying the statute that prohibits foreign nationals or foreign governments from participating directly in presidential campaigns. They're not permitted, for example, to give cash contributions. And so the issue was this so-called opposition research that the Trump campaign wanted to get something of value that would violate that statute? And the simple answer is that it's not clear whether mere information, even if it's dirt on your opponent designed to influence the election, violates the existing criminal statute, which is why it seems to many of us that this is something that Congress ought to be addressing pretty quickly.
And we're going to be talking to a couple of people from Congress in just a few moments to see what this does to the whole conversation, the impeachment conversation. Juliette, though, when Bob Mueller spoke, right, he spoke to an audience of one about what happened, right? About what mattered so much and what should matter to every single American about what happened here. And here is how he closed his comments.
I will close by reiterating the central allegation of our indictments, that there were multiple, systematic efforts to interfere in our election. And that allegation deserves the attention of every American.
And yet, Juliette, one American, the most powerful American, tonight just said, I'd do it again.
That's absolutely right. Remember, the last line of the Mueller report is, of course, no one is above the law. Sometimes people forget how the Mueller report ends. But what's important is Mueller is focusing us on volume 1, right? We tend to get focused on volume 2, which is obstruction of justice, because we can see it. We sort of were familiar with it. Volume 1 is the key to what, in fact, was so fundamentally and existentially wrong with what the Trump campaign did. And I just want to say one more thing. This is a challenge not just for Democrats and Republicans in impeachment. This is also a challenge for us in the media, analysts, reporters, whatever else. How will we interpret, use, analyze information known to be given to a campaign by a foreign entity, stolen in WikiLeaks, shared in other cases? Let me just put it this way. It's not going to be Norway, right? We know it's not going to be Norway. It is going to be Russia or China. So I think this is the time for all of us to be thinking about how will we use that information, report and analyze that information, because we can't validate it or give it approval.
So, Mark, what do you make, though, of the fact that he answered the questions in this way? I mean, obviously, this is what he really thinks, right? He's being casual, he's answering it. But you know, he knows what he's saying, all right? He means what he says, and he says what he means. We'll talk about that later in the show. He didn't say all of this not knowing the repercussions. He knows perfectly well that he's giving the bird to the entire Russia investigation.
Right, and because there are no repercussions, at this point. Everything Donald Trump says and does, as you say, is very calculated. People say he's dumb, he's not. He's extremely smart,
Yes.
and quite frankly, he really knows how to manipulate the news media. He's done a very good job. That is in part to his skill, and also in part because of his position. He's the most powerful man in the world. So of course he's going to draw our attention. But as he is saying this, Aaron, and did you see when he was challenged by George Stephanopoulos about Christopher Wray's comments, he said, as you said, well, he is wrong. He was angry to be challenged at that point. Well, let me tell you what's going on right now. The Department of Homeland Security is working to make sure state election officials are up to speed on what's going on. We also know the FBI is briefing the Democratic presidential campaigns, and they're going to brief the Republican National Committee as well. So Donald Trump can go out there and say that he's going to take this up for research while he's working against his own people trying to stop it.
All right. Thank you all very much. And next, we have more on this breaking news. We're going to talk to the head of the House Intelligence Committee, Adam Schiff. Plus, President Trump on using Kim Jong-un's family as intelligence assets, trying to say he said what he said, but he didn't mean what he said. What does that mean?
Unpredictable Crohn's symptoms following you for a...
Chapter 24. And Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him for to shew him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming, and of the end of the world? And Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled. For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in divers places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall rise, and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations. And then shall the end come. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. But pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. Then if any man shall say unto you, Lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not. For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall shew great signs and wonders, insomuch that, if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Behold, I have told you before. Wherefore, if they shall say unto you, Behold, he is in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he is in the secret chambers, believe it not. For as the lightning cometh out of the east, and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with the sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Now learn a parable of the fig tree. When his branch is yet tender, and putteth forth leaves, ye know that summer is nigh. So likewise ye, when ye shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass, till all these things be fulfilled. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and knew not until the flood came and took them all away, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Then shall two be in the field, the one shall be taken, the other left. Two women shall be grinding at the mill, the one shall be taken, and the other left. Watch, therefore, for ye know not what hour your Lord doth come. But know this, that if the good man of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched, and would not have suffered his house to be broken up. Therefore be ye also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh. Who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his Lord hath made ruler over his household, to give them meat in due season? Blessed is that servant whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find so doing. Verily I say unto you, that he shall make him ruler over all his goods. But, and if that evil servant shall say in his heart, My Lord delayeth his coming, and shall begin to smite his fellow servants, and to eat and drink with the drunken, the Lord of that servant shall come in a day when he looketh not for him, and in an hour that he is not aware of, and shall cut him asunder, and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth.
And ask them to provide information to them. There's actually agencies in the United States that you do research so you know how to run against your opponent. What this man is talking about, and he is the President of the United States, is how he can violate the rules and policies of our country by prohibiting outside foreign entities to interfere with our democracy. It is past sad. It is past frustration. This is criminal. It is criminal. And we need to hold this president accountable. You know, we've been talking about impeachment. Few people understand that if we impeach him, and I feel that we should begin that process, if we impeach him, he still is sitting in the White House because the Senate has to act. I don't know what's happening to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle who continuously put their head in the sand. This issue, our country, the citizens, our democracy is bigger than Donald Trump. And we need to act that should be scary. That should frighten people. And we need to do our job. I sit on oversight.
Yes.
And we went through 6 hours of hearings today where the other side, my opponent, my colleagues on the other side, were obstructing and stalling, saying that a joint bipartisan request, subpoena, for documents that the president is now saying under executive order, executive privilege, you don't have to give anything to Congress. They didn't say to the Democrats,
right?
Because the Republicans signed on too. He said, you do not have to give it to Congress. Wake up.
So let me ask, I want to ask you about that in a moment, but first what he said when he specifically was asked about how Christopher Wray said, I would hope, and he almost said it with a little bit of a snark and a sneer. I don't mean it negatively, but he was saying it basically, Christopher Wray was saying, of course you should call the FBI, as in, it is so obvious, I would hope that any American citizen would call us, right? He was saying it with a little bit of attitude because he just seemed so obvious. Well, the man who just appointed him to be director of the FBI just said he's wrong, and he said so tersely and curtly and clearly with anger. So what now for Christopher Wray?
Well, he can be part of the revolving door that we see in the White House where people are appointed with the understanding or the expectation from the President of the United States that you do what I tell you to do. Your oath of office or your job description to the people of the United States is not why you're here. You're here to do what I want and what I want you to do. So his days may be short now. We'll be looking for a new person.
So you mentioned today the vote for contempt, and you did vote to hold the Attorney General Bill Barr and the Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross in contempt. Do you expect, Congresswoman, that the full House will act on this? Or do you think that this is actually going to be a moment where you can come to an agreement with this administration on those documents?
So one of the things the public needs to be very clear on, because the comment that we're rushing it, we started this investigation over a year ago, and 9 weeks ago, a joint, again, I want to make it very clear, the Republicans signed a subpoena along with the Democrats from the Oversight Committee demanding and requesting subpoena the documents for us to do a complete investigation. And the president has interfered, saying that he, at this point, is doing executive privilege and directing the administration not to give any papers to Congress. We are going to bring this to a floor for a vote. We even, our chair, Cummings, actually called and tried to work out an agreement. They refused to talk to the chair. And so we are at the point where we're going to do our job and use every tool that we have. And the President of the United States, Donald Trump, needs to understand, as he travels all over the world, he sees kings and queens, and he sees these individuals who are exactly in charge of everything that happens. He has a democracy, it's checks and balances, and he is not the king of the United States of America.
Congresswoman Lawrence, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And next, more on the breaking news. The head of the House Intelligence Committee will join me. And then Trump's answer about using Kim Jong-un's family members as intelligence assets by the CIA. So where does the President of the United States stand?
And that's your basic three-pointer?
If you say so.
I'm sorry?
What Pete here isn't telling you is that Snapshot rewards safe drivers with discounts on car insurance.
What?
Or maybe he didn't know. I'm done with this class.
You're not even enrolled in this class.
I know, I'm supposed to be in ceramics.
Room
Do you know?
308.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Good luck, everybody.
Everywhere I look, I see light and shape. And some shapes are just more beautiful than others.
Taking something that is complicated and making it simple and effortless, that to me is the true essence of luxury.
The F-Pace.
How Jaguar makes an SUV.
Feel the clarity of non-drowsy Claritin and relief from symptoms caused by over 200 indoor and outdoor allergens, like those from Buddy. Because stuffed animals are clearly no substitute for real ones. Feel the clarity and live Claritin Clear.
You'll give the men in your life a gift as great as they are. Good on you. This Father's Day at Men's Warehouse, take 60% off all casual wear. Select designer sport coats are $179.99, plus all dress shirts are 3 for $99.99. Now through Sunday, find the perfect gift. Only at Men's Warehouse.
Apollo 11, your go for separation. Watch my target. Watch. 30 feet down, 2.5. Picking up the set. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Few things change the way we see everything. TV is making history again. QLED 8K.
When you have nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea, try new Pepto Liquid Caps for fast relief and ultra coating. Nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset Get powerful relief with new Pepto-Bismol Liquid Caps.
Come Alice in Philadelphia to learn how a man-made crisis puts a community at risk.
No community should become the dumping grounds.
Why do you have to fight to make people respect you as human beings?
Get 0% financing for 72 months or $9,000 in total savings on the 2019 Ford F-150 XLT.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Weather.
Weather who?
Whether or not the weather's going to ruin your basketball game.
You're banned from my room.
Don't be a punchline for DirecTV. Suddenlink has reliable TV and internet with no-term contracts and no early termination fees.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Contra.
Contra who?
Contractual obligations with DirecTV lock us in for 2 years, and the only way out is up to $480 in early termination fees.
That's unfeasible.
Don't be a punchline for DirecTV. Suddenlink has no-term contracts and no early termination fee.
This is CNN, the most trusted name in news.
Breaking news. President Trump contradicting his handpicked FBI director on whether the FBI should be notified if a foreign country, such as Russia, calls with political dirt in a campaign. Trump making the comments as he once again defended his son, Don Jr., for taking that meeting at Trump Tower in 2016 with Russians who were connected with the government, one of whom was an informant for the Russian government. And here is what President Trump just said.
Somebody comes up and says, hey, I have information on your opponent. Do you call the FBI? I don't think
coming from
I'll tell you
Russia,
what,
you do.
I've seen a lot of things over my life. I don't think in my whole life I've ever called the FBI. In my whole life. You don't call the FBI. You throw somebody out of your office. You do whatever
Al
you do.
Gore got a stolen briefing book. He called the FBI.
Well, that's different, a stolen briefing book. This isn't a stolen. This is somebody that said, we have information on your opponent. Oh, let me call the FBI. Give me a break.
And he continued when George Stephanopoulos followed up and said, well, Christopher Wray said that's what you should do, your FBI director. And the president said, well, he's wrong. He's wrong, of his own FBI director. Here's what Director Wray said.
My view is that if any public official or member of any campaign is contacted by any nation state or anybody acting on behalf of a nation state about influencing or interfering with our election, then that's something that the FBI would want to know about.
As I said, he always says it with that smile because it is so blatantly obvious. Well, you heard the president. The president said, quote, the FBI director is wrong. Evan Perez is out front. Evan, this is pretty incredible. It's an incredible moment overall, and it's an incredible moment certainly for the president and his handpicked FBI director. So what does Wray do? Is there any response yet from the FBI?
Right. It's a very tough thing for the FBI director, right? The idea of him getting into essentially an argument with the President of the United States, there's really nothing to be gained from that. So we've called the FBI. The FBI is officially not commenting on this, Aaron. But I can tell you this. One of the things that the FBI is going to be doing is trying to make sure that the Russians or the Chinese or the Iranians do not interfere in the 2020 elections. And one of the things that the Mueller report told us was that, we know that accepting a thing of value from a foreign country, from a foreign power, is against campaign finance law. So the one issue now that has been crossed is they know this. The Mueller report has established this. So if anyone, if the Trump campaign or any other campaign accepts something of value from a foreign power, they've been warned, and the FBI will be enforcing the law. So I think...
and just to be clear, Evan, something of value does not need to be a something. Well, but it could be information, right? That's the point.
It could be information, exactly, because in this case, you have information that is being used to help one campaign and hurt another. And so, look, I think it's very clear that come 2020, if this campaign or any other campaign accepts something of value from a foreign power, they will be getting the FBI calling on them, and they're going to have a legal problem. So the president may feel that he's okay with this. I think the FBI has other ideas, and so does the Justice Department.
All right. Thank you very much, Evan. So let's go now to the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff. Congressman, your reaction to this exchange that you just saw with the president and George Stephanopoulos, where the president says he'd take the call, he'd take the information, probably wouldn't call the FBI, and his FBI director is wrong in saying he should.
Well, my reaction is much the way it is often these days, which is stunning on the one hand and not at all surprising on the other. Donald Trump has made it clear that he will engage in any action, no matter how unethical or unpatriotic, that he will go right up to the line of what's legal, and indeed it looks like he crossed that line many times. So no, on the heels of Rudy Giuliani saying that He was off to Ukraine to see if he could get that foreign power to investigate a family member of one of the president's political rivals, on the heels of Jared Kushner refusing to rule out getting foreign help or whether he'd call the FBI. It's not surprising, but it is stunning, and it does tell us we're going to have to legislate. One of the conclusions Mueller was not able to reach, one of the elements of the conspiracy he wasn't able to prove with respect to Jared Kushner and the others getting dirt from the Russians, was that getting dirt in that context was something of value that should have been reported. So we're going to have to legislate that, yes, you've got to report foreign contacts, and when you receive foreign help like that, it's a campaign contribution.
So what you're saying is Mueller, as Evan's pointing out, obviously Mueller's saying it is a thing of value. You're going to put forward, or are you going to put forward, that should be a law, so that then it would be clear that what was laid out in the Mueller report was indeed a criminal violation?
I think it's going to be absolutely necessary both to require disclosure of those kind of foreign contacts, particularly with a hostile foreign power, but also to make it clear in terms of campaign law that if you get opposition research from a foreign government, that's something of value that needs to be reported to deter the kind of unethical, unpatriotic conduct that the president engaged in the last campaign and apparently is completely willing to do all over again. He's learned absolute nothing.
Just to be clear, when George said, well, Al Gore got the stolen briefing book, right, and reported it, the president said, well, this is different. This was just information. So he's basically saying, well, the information that we could have thought could have gone into a briefing book, would have been that quality. It's different because it wasn't already in the book? That's the argument he's making?
Well, the fact is, this was stolen too. This was data stolen from the Clinton campaign. So whether it's in a briefing book or it's stolen through a cyber attack, that obviously makes no difference whatsoever. The president's argument doesn't hold up. And what's more, not only Christopher Wray disagrees with him, we had a hearing just today with FBI agents, a former assistant U.S. attorney that was the Republican chosen witness, a Fox News contributor, and he too said they should have called the FBI. Anyone getting an overture by a foreign power during a presidential campaign should call the FBI.
I saw that, and I wonder now what this means for Christopher Wray, who no doubt wants to do the right thing and try to keep stability and calm at the FBI. What's he supposed to do right now? Does he just sit there and try to ignore it and hope that this goes away?
Well, I think that he has managed to walk that fine line very carefully of staying out of the public, line of sight when he's differing with the president, unless it's absolutely necessary. When he's asked a direct question, like he was, he's going to give a direct answer whether the president likes it or not, but he's going to do everything he can to avoid putting himself in the position of getting into a brawl with the president, because he views his mission as looking after the men and women at the Bureau, making sure the mission of the Bureau gets done, and avoiding unnecessary friction with the White House.
So where the president's going to try to take a leg to stand on this is to say that this was opposition research, right? If I could have gotten it from anyone, I got it from, happened to get it from a hostile foreign power. And, oh, you guys, meaning you, Chairman, do it all the time. Here's what he said.
You go and talk honestly to congressmen. They all do it. They always have. And that's the way it is. It's called Oppo research.
What's your response to that?
That's pure nonsense. In fact, this point also came up in the committee today when one of our members pointed out that not a single member of the House of Representatives goes either soliciting foreign assistance in their campaign, or I think if it were offered to them would go and not report it. I sure as heck hope that all my colleagues would do that. So the president is completely out of line, but this is typical for Donald Trump, which is he projects onto others his own lack of morality. If he wouldn't call the FBI, he assumes no one would. If he is deceptive about something, he assumes everyone is. If he is willing to do the unpatriotic thing and go to a foreign power for help, he assumes everyone will do the unethical thing. But that's just not the case, and God help us if it ever becomes that way.
Chairman Schiff, thank you.
Thank you.
And next, Trump bragging about the, quote, beautiful letter from Kim Jong-un. But was it? Well, we actually now have some new details about exactly what was in that letter, what Kim wrote to President Trump.
What?
Hello, YouTube viewers. This is Blake Fannin. Listen, I was thinking of a video I made quite a long time ago. I was thinking about something that I thought I heard the Lord tell me several months ago, but I wasn't sure. It was about me thinking that I heard him say that Trump was the last president. Several months back, I thought I heard the Lord say that Trump was going to be the last president. I thought I heard the Lord say that, but I wasn't completely sure. Well, just a minute ago, I was thinking of when that prophecy happened. I was thinking about what I said and what I thought I heard the Lord say, and just before I made this video, I asked him, I said, Jesus, if it be thy will, please tell me if Trump is going to be the last president. I asked him to please tell me. I asked him to please tell me if Trump would be the final president of the United States. I repeat, I asked him to tell me if Trump would be the last and final president of the United States. And I heard the Lord clearly say to me, he said, that's correct. He said, for sure. He said, that is correct. That is for sure. That's what he said to me on the day that I made this video. That's what he said to me even as I was filming this video. He said, that is correct. That is for sure. The Lord clearly just told me that Trump is going to be the last and final president of the United States. And he said, the rapture is at hand. The rapture hour is around the corner. Christians, repent of all your sins and get ready. Prepare. This is the Lord's word. He says the rapture is at hand. Get ready. Prepare. Thank you. Please like, share, and subscribe. And remember, none of us is perfect. None of us is perfect, but the Lord is merciful. Thank you.
When he does not. Today, the president was asked about comments he made yesterday, suggesting he would not have used the best possible asset to spy on North Korea, Kim Jong-un's half-brother. Here's what he said.
No, it's not what I meant. It's what I said, and I think it's different than maybe your interpretation.
So Trump said he didn't mean what he said. So let's be clear on what he said. Trump was asked about North Korea, and he brought up a Wall Street Journal report that said Kim Jong-un killed his half-brother after finding out he was a CIA asset. So here is how Trump put it.
I saw the information about the CIA with respect to his brother or half-brother, and I would tell him that would not happen under my auspices. That's for sure. I wouldn't let that happen under my auspices.
Kim Jong-nam would have been one of the most valuable assets with inside knowledge about the rogue hermit regime or anyone in the Kim family, a regime where any intelligence is important for the world and for the United States. I mean, Kim Jong-un, remember, has put out videos showing the White House in flames. He's tested nuclear missiles, which can strike the continental United States and strike as far east as Chicago. So when President Trump brought up the report saying Kim Jong-un was a CIA asset and said that would not happen under his watch, the whole world took notice, including the former head of the CIA.
Well, he has no appreciation for the importance of the intelligence profession and the work that intelligence professionals do around the globe, to include going out and trying to recruit individuals to provide us the insights we need to keep our country strong and safe.
Words matter. And when it comes to North Korea, Trump means what he says, as he said himself. Of course he did. Back in 2017 when he was threatening Kim's regime.
I hope that they are going to fully understand the gravity of what I said. And what I said is what I mean. So hopefully they'll understand, Peter, exactly what I said and the meaning of those words. Those words are very, very easy to understand.
Except for when they're not. So if Trump says he said what he said, but it wasn't what he meant this time, then what did he mean? Out front now, Anna Fifield, Beijing bureau chief for The Washington Post and the author of the new book, The Great Successor, where she broke the news about Kim Jong-nam being a CIA informant, and Bob Baer, former CIA operative. So, Bob, okay, I mean, it's pretty amazing talking about North Korea. I say what I say, I mean what I mean what I say what I mean. Okay, you get it. But today, no, he doesn't. He said what he said, but he doesn't mean it. He was given the opportunity to clarify. So then, okay, what did you mean? But he didn't. What do you make of this?
Well, I look at it from the perspective of the Central Intelligence Agency, and this president is so volatile, and it's unclear whose side he's on, whether it's North Korea or Washington's side. You know, it's like, don't spy on North Korea. It's sort of like Roosevelt handing an order down, don't spy on Japan before Pearl Harbor. I mean, it's fantastic. It's, you know, he's clearly siding with an adversary, and that's the message is going to go down the ranks, just as it's gone down the ranks of the FBI. Don't spy on the Russians because you'll end up losing your job and your pension.
Anna, I mean, when Kim Jong-un hears this, what does he think?
I mean, this has to be a gift to him. I mean, there is so little human intelligence about North Korea. The CIA calls it the hardest of all the hard targets. So if it is, you know, it's true, as I reported, that Kim Jong-nam was in fact an informant for the CIA, that would be a huge boon to the intelligence community in America. But I think what Kim Jong-un has been very assiduously doing is he has been studying Donald Trump very carefully. You know, the North Koreans have read The Art of the Deal. They have read Fire and Fury, and they read Trump's tweets. So they have become very adept at reading him and knowing what he wants to hear. So we've seen this repeatedly with the kinds of words that Kim Jong-un has been saying to President Trump, and now President Trump's returning the favor.
And I mean, it is pretty incredible, though, when you say there's confusion about what side the President of the United States is on. We are talking about North Korea. I mean, Bob, this, you know, there's a letter, and Anna has an insight on this as well, because she knows so much about how Kim has been studying Trump. But there was a new letter, right, that Trump brought up in all of this, you know, when he said he wouldn't do this CIA asset thing. He said it was a beautiful letter, and he got a letter on the one-year anniversary of their first summit. Here is what Trump said.
He just wrote me a very nice letter, unexpected. And someday you'll see what was in that letter. Someday you'll be reading about it, maybe in 100 years from now, maybe in 2 weeks. Who knows? But it was a very nice letter. It was a very warm, very nice letter. I appreciated it. Okay?
100 years or 2 weeks, like the taxes, Bob. Let me ask you, though, one thing, though, that we have reporting now, we do know, when he says this letter was so important, we have a source familiar with the contents of the letter, which said that the letter did not include anything of substance. No details on a deal, no details on ideas for a deal, no details on anything, just platitudes and warmth. What does that tell you?
You know what it reminds me, Aaron? I hate to bring up history. It reminds me of Chamberlain at Munich when he made a so-called agreement with Adolf Hitler, who then invaded Poland. This is just incredible, Aaron. I've got to say, we are truly bordering on treason with Russia and North Korea. And, you know, this guy really has got to be impeached and out of office now, because I'm not sure whose side he's on.
Which, I think it's an incredible thing to say that someone would not be sure of that. And when it comes to this letter, he says, oh, it's so beautiful, it's so important. As I said, or the reporting that we have would show that to not be the case. Well, I mean, it may be beautiful, but there's nothing of substance in it. You write in your book, the Korean language has complex levels of politeness, and Kim Jong-un made sure to use the most honorific terms when speaking to Trump, something he knew would be appreciated by the American president. You're referring to their first summit. Mm-hmm. This is what you're talking about, a letter like this.
Exactly. I mean, this is all very calculated, and Kim Jong-un has shown himself to be kind of very skillful and savvy in knowing which buttons to push when it comes to President Trump. So he was very flattering, using very formal and deferential language during the summit, making sure to really kind of play the junior partner there, because he knows that Trump responds well to this, and it can lead to a situation where Trump is declaring a major victory. You know, we won't have to worry about nuclear weapons anymore, when Kim Jong-un has not agreed to anything. It's all style, and he doesn't have to give up any substance.
Any substance at all, and yet here we are. Thank you both very much. And I want to get back to our breaking news tonight. The President of the United States telling George Stephanopoulos this.
Your campaign this time around, if foreigners, if Russia, if China, if someone else offers you information on an opponent, should they accept it or should they call the FBI?
I think maybe you do both. I think you might want to listen. There's nothing wrong with listening. If somebody called from a country, Norway, we have information on your opponent. Oh, I think I'd want to hear it.
You want that kind of interference in our elections?
It's not an interference. They have information. I think I'd take it. If I thought there was something wrong, I'd go maybe to the FBI if I thought there was something wrong.
Continues to say he's never called the FBI. Give me a break. And Trump's 2020 rivals are weighing in. Elizabeth Warren, the Mueller report made it clear a foreign government attacked our 2016 elections to support Trump. Trump welcomed that help, and Trump obstructed the investigation. Now he says he'd do it all over again. It's time to impeach Donald Trump. Governor Steve Bullock tweeting 1-800-CALL-FBI. I want to bring in now the former FBI Supervisory Special Agent Josh Campbell. He's worked for two FBI directors, James Comey and Bob Mueller. Now, Josh, I want to be clear here. One of the most important moments, right, was when George Stephanopoulos said, Christopher Wray, your FBI director, said this would be wrong, that you should call the FBI. And Trump tersely, curtly said, well, he's wrong. So far, Director Wray has not responded. Can he stay quiet on this?
I don't think so, because I think what we've seen here is that the President of the United States just completely undercut the director of the FBI. And I would disagree with the characterization that he's the president's FBI. He's actually the country's FBI, although he's appointed by the president. That's an important data point. But again, what the president is essentially saying to the American people and to the men and women of the FBI is that I don't believe you. I don't trust you. And when you come out and say something through your leadership, I'm going to go in a different direction. So if you're the director of the FBI right now, you have a couple different options. You can actually speak out and, again, ensure the public that you're going to take these issues seriously, that you're going to investigate any type of malfeasance or law breaking that may happen in the past and that may happen on the horizon, or you can resign. And there are always two different elements that you want to reach there. The first is on principle. If there's something that you see that's so egregious that you disagree with, you have to have that honest conversation. Can I stay in this position? And then the second one is if you no longer think that you're effective. Have I lost effectiveness as it relates to this job, to this administration? This is sure seems like one of those issues that checks both of those boxes. So if you're the director of the FBI, you have to have that conversation with yourself and try to figure out, what are you going to do? Are you going to speak out, or what's next for you?
Right, and there is a crucial question there for Christopher Wray, right? Because his boss has just undercut him and said he's wrong about something Christopher Wray thinks is a black and white simple issue, right? They don't agree on perhaps one of the most important things. And yet, what would be the implication if Christopher Wray were to stand up and say, I won't take this anymore and leave, even if he did it Jim Mattis style? Would that be more disruptive than not?
Well, perhaps, but sometimes you have to be a disruptor. I think, again, it comes down to public confidence in the FBI, in these institutions. If they stay quiet when the President of the United States says, I'm going to continue to accept information from a foreign government, even if it goes against the law, I don't know how they do stay quiet. Again, when their key constituent is the American people, who have to have trust and confidence in with them. I think, Aaron, as I heard this today, I think this is among the most troubling things that we've heard from the President, because it's not just talking about things that happened in the past, him defending himself from actions and allegations, but it's actually looking forward and him actually telling the American people what he's going to do if faced with another situation, possible law breaking, accepting information from a foreign government.
Well, he's also trying to change the norm, right? To say, oh, it's normal, people do it, it's okay, right? He's trying to change the norm and make people think that something that is not okay is okay.
That's right. He's a norm buster. We know that. And again, he came to town. He was elected essentially on that platform that he was going to do things differently. But at some point, that clashes with the law. And the law is the law. You cannot accept a thing of value from a foreign government. That is illegal. The president was sitting in the Oval Office today saying, yeah, I'll do it.
Thank you very much. And Jeannie is next.
Thanks to Price.
YouTube viewers, the video that I made 7 months ago that I played for you in the last commercial break, during the making of that video 7 months ago, I clearly heard the Lord say, I repeat, I clearly heard God say that Donald John Trump Sr. is going to be the last president before all Christians leave this earth. But listen to me. First John chapter 1 says, if we say that we have no sin, or if we say that we have not sinned, we are calling God a liar and showing that his word has no place in our hearts. But if we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us and to cleanse us of all unrighteousness. First John 4 says, perfect love casteth out fear, because fear hath torment. He that feareth is not made perfect in love. John 8 says, the devil is a liar and the father of lies. So, YouTube viewers, listen to me very closely. As I just said in the last video that I played for you, that I made 7 months back, I clearly heard the Lord say that Donald John Trump would be the last United States president before all Christians leave this earth. And in case you couldn't hear Matthew 24 clearly, it says, no man know the day nor the hour when we will leave this earth. So keep that in mind, listen closely, like, share, and subscribe.
Came between Trump and the president of Poland. Here's Jeannie.
As a cameraman checked his focus, a mysterious glint, something special awaiting President Trump and the leader of Poland.
Itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout.
But this spider went up the presidential podium, judging by the single strand of a web. The spider web is literally going from mic to mic, LOL. The mighty strand managed to survive, President Trump adjusting his microphone. The president was unaware.
Are honored to welcome President Duda.
An uninvited dude had left its mark. We first became aware of the web via the web when a self-proclaimed media nerd tweeted, "Okay, Jeannie Mose, whatever you're working on for tonight, stop. Now you'll be reporting on the Rose Garden spider web." And we are. The Strand survived multiple handshakes, perhaps symbolizing an arachnid warning not to waver from the truth at this press conference. Oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive. The Strand barely escaped some of President Trump's gestures.
The plane can land dead straight.
Okay, this wasn't quite as dramatic.
Get out of here.
It's when President Obama nailed a fly.
Nice.
Or when a fly landed on then-candidate Trump's hair.
Have that wall.
Even walls won't keep out pesky bugs. At the Rose Garden event, it was as if a spider had written the president's remarks describing that web.
The enduring ties of civilization, the unbreakable bonds.
But the bond was broken almost half an hour into the presser.
Let's see, who do I like? Nobody, that's the end.
His outstretched pointer was the end for the spider web that snagged the president. Should have vacuumed the podium instead of the red carpet. You can put your shoes back on. Jeannie Moos, CNN, New York.
That was one speedy spider, right? Thanks for joining us. Anderson starts now.
Good evening. The President of the United States says that if a foreign government came offering their election help this time around, and I'm quoting, "I think I'd want to hear it," he said. In other words, the central point of the Mueller report, a foreign adversary, including Russia, seeking to influence American democracy. The man who took an oath to defend it says he's okay with that, and says his FBI director who thinks otherwise is wrong. And Vladimir Putin's help? Fine by him, apparently. He says it's done all the time, just normal opposition research, says President Trump. History says otherwise. It is not done all the time, or even some of the time. It's not normal. And as all this comes at the end of a day full of other breaking news, including new reporting on the president's efforts to investigate the investigators. In addition to that tonight, Hope Hicks, a longtime campaign aide, former White House communications director, and one-time member of the president's inner circle.
Okay, I'm sorry. I meant to end it when this news segment came on, but I had to stop and do something for a moment. The video is over. Please keep that in mind. We could leave it at any hour, but before this video ends, it is just now right around 8 p.m. at the time I am making this. Do you realize all Christians could leave any time between now and sunrise? It is after sunset here now, here in Prestonsburg, Kentucky. Do you realize all Christians could leave this earth by the time the sun rises here or where you're at? Keep that in mind. Please like, share, and subscribe. And if it's already dark over there, we could leave before the sun rises where you're at.